Hey guys, we're on a 5-minute countdown here until we get this thing started. So grab some food if you want to and come on. We'll be getting started very, very shortly. Grab some grub. Okay, how's everybody doing? All right, I'm going to talk on this tonight only because it's going out over the live stream, so I know it feels weird, just like, okay. We're so glad that you could be with us for our church business future vision meeting of sorts. We don't do a lot of these, to tell you the truth, only because business is usually pretty boring. But we have some fairly exciting things to work through with you tonight, just about stuff that's going on in the church. And so we want to just kind of have this as an informal gathering, walk you through a variety of things that are going on right now, that'll be going on in the next few weeks and months here at the church, and then on into the future. And we want it to be interactive, which means at any point in this, you've got questions, we'd love for you to ask them, and we can just discuss, even if it sounds weird with me on this. Can you, if this is in the monitors, can you kill all that too, Mike? Okay, also want to let you know that on the back table behind the buffet tonight, if you're watching online, you missed some good tacos. That's right, that's a resounding yes. Okay, on the back table tonight before you leave, there's a variety of different places for involvement. And so if you're interested in some of the things we talk about tonight and finding a place where you can get a little more involved, there's some places to sign up in the back. And then for those that are watching online or for those that are here tonight, if you want to do that through the app, you can just click open your app, and the very first tab will say something like Volunteer at the Vine, and it's got a variety of different places that you can kind of choose to select, and Stephanie and Austin will get those and reach back out to you and talk to you about how you can get a little bit more involved. All right? So we're going to power through. I'm going to throw a bunch of stuff at the table. At any point, stop me, raise a hand. We're going to talk through a bunch of different subjects tonight, and then we'll have some time at the end just to kind of gab, and you can ask questions, and nothing's off limits. Well, there's some things that are off limits, but I'll let you know when you get there. Okay, real quick, here we go. We've got a new marriage small group coming up this year. We're trying to figure out what the right recipe is when it comes to COVID and small groups, and we just haven't really figured that out yet. And so we're trying something new. We're going to do a marriage group this year. So if you're married, that's your only requirement. Even if you weren't married, we'd probably take you. But if you're married, it'd be helpful. And this is the platform that we're going to use for our marriage series this year. And this particular platform is pretty sparse. It's going to be kind of the questions that lead and kind of the questions that lead the discussion. You don't have to do a tremendous amount of background work. You don't have to do a tremendous amount of background reading. A lot of it will be discussion based. And the way we're going to do it is this. I've gotten a slight verbal commitment from Donnie to help me with this. I told him that him and Donna will be, now that he's retired, they'll be the old couple. And Kat and I will be the young couple. And we're going to be kind of tag teaming the discussion. And then out of the people that sign up to be involved in this series, we're going to invite one couple in each week, and then all the other couples will be watching it online, and it'll kind of go like that every week. We're going to try this format and see if it works. This is going to start right after Easter, but I need to know if you're going to join so I can order your books. And so that's in the back. That sign-up sheet is in the back. And so it's going to be kind of like part discussion, part live streamed. We think it'll work. If it doesn't, we'll chalk it up to one of those things where Mike said, hey, this is a good idea, and it didn't work out. So I'm not scared. It's fine. Okay, so that's coming up. Let me tell you one more thing that's coming up. One of the things we want to do this year is that here at the Vine, and we don't talk about it enough, we know that, but because of COVID, we've been kind of thrown off our normal schedule. Normally, the church every year gears up to do a large summer mission trip. We've been funneling all of our mission resources, specifically in foreign missions, to a place called Toccoa, Honduras, where we've established an orphanage and a girls' home and feeding stations, and we've been working with the local municipality there. They've donated some land, set aside some land for our organization to build an additional orphanage, and we're about to get that underway and start that. We think that'll take, 10 years to probably get to full fruition with the way we move. And typically what's happened at the church is every year We pull together resources here as a congregation. We fundraise. We take all that capital down and then pour it into the infrastructure work that's going into building these sites. Then we leave those sites. It's not our plan or our intention to run those sites long term. We want the local people to run the sites. We're just in for the infrastructure, and we think it's a good cause. And we've kind of built some real deep connections here in this area of the world. Honduras is the second poorest country in the hemisphere, so it's got some real need. So that's been our focus over the last couple of years. And with COVID, nobody can get on a flight, and if you do get on a flight, you may not make it home. So we've just kind of said, I'm not sure this is the right time to send 30 people to the third world and not be able to get them back. And so we've held off on going for over a year now. We look forward to a time that we can re-engage and start that project. We've been in, Mike takes the lead on all of that. So everything that is Honduras-based, Mike takes the lead on that. He's one of our deacons here at the church. And he runs all that, and it's not broke. It works. In you know, the old adage, if it's not broke, don't fix it. Or, Is that right? Okay. Thank you. So we're not going to mess with that. But what we are going to do is we'd like to expand for the first time in a long time what we're doing when it comes to foreign missions. And what we'd like to do is begin the work of connecting with some missionaries that we truly think that we can start a long-term relationship with and begin some ongoing support of missionaries that are going out into the mission field. We haven't done that sort of missionary work here as a church yet, except for on local capacity. We do that with our local Fellowship of Christian Athletes director and some other things that have happened locally. We have not done that in the foreign mission realm. We'd like to take that journey together and start that this year. So all that to say, we're going to be establishing a mission support committee. If you think this would be something that you might be interested in, you can also sign up for that in the back. And we're going to form that committee. We're going to give that committee some kind of marching orders and responsibilities to work under the eldership here at the church and get the ball rolling. And we need to get that rolling pretty soon. We've got some candidates that we believe in that we want the mission committee to kind of oversee the interviews and all that kind of stuff with. So that's coming up. So that also is in the back, or you can sign up on the website for that. Let me hit the pause button really quick. Any questions on those two things before we get going any further? Am I just that thorough? So good, so good. Yes?
I have one question. Well, maybe two.
Okay. You can do three if you want.
On the marriage group,
Yeah.
what time is the meeting?
We haven't decided yet. The meeting for the majority of the people in the group will happen online. And so, number one, if you want to meet live, it'll be at a specific time, and we'll kind of decide that based upon how many people and what night of the week works for everybody. But we'll also leave those discussions up and leave those lessons up for those that can't access that specific time, and they can watch them afterwards. They'll be recorded and archived, so you can watch them at any time. Yes? It's a COVID life group. It's 12 weeks. 12 weeks. 12 weeks, yeah. You had two questions.
My other question was about the mission board.
Yeah.
Committee. Basically, they're just going to be looking at things that you tell them that they need to research and stuff.
No. What we'd like, ultimately, at the end of the day, this falls under our programming and our mission as a church, which is overseen by the group of elders that oversee the church, and I'll get into that later down the road. But what we'd like to happen in this particular situation is for this group to not have an elder on the committee and to not have me on the committee. And so that they would be a group truly that would be presenting things to the elder board as advice to the elder board. Does that make sense? So we want to create some distance there just because, you know, when you're a church our size, you can get into a pattern where there are 6 or 7 people doing all the work, and we're trying to break that pattern. That make sense? Okay. Anybody else? Those are very good questions. Okay. I would like to ask Sarah Cook to join me just for a few moments. Would you guys give Sarah a little hand? She's our... So Sarah is our school administrator. For those that don't know Sarah, she's our school administrator. And for those that don't know, we have a school. Sarah is our school administrator. You want to give us a quick rundown? Just 5 things off the top of your head that you just want to tell us about what's going on with the school?
Okay, so we were closed like other schools for a couple months, and then we opened June 1st with a small summer program, hoping it went well, and thankfully it did. Everybody was safe, everybody was healthy, so we opened up the school year, and we gave the option to do it virtually or face-to-face or both for families who needed that, and it's gone really well. So we're more than halfway through the school year, and we are full. And
How many students do we have?
around 100. So we've kept the classes smaller and obviously safer because of COVID. So that's part of why we're full. And so it's going well. We have a system in place that we think keeps all the teachers and students healthy, and thankfully that has worked so far. And so we are moving forward with this summer program. There's a lot of students that are struggling this year in other school settings because of just the changes going on. So we're offering tutoring, and then the summer program for parents who are working and just kind of need that. And we've also already started enrolling for the next school year because it's time for that.
So if you're a parent of a kid between kindergarten and 5th grade, and you feel like maybe, just maybe, your student has gotten a little bit behind, due to whatever. In the summer program, it's not just fun and games. We're going to actually have teachers here on site that will be doing instruction, catch up,
Right.
all that kind of stuff.
Yes, so there are, for that, there's certified teachers who will take care of teaching students one-on-one or in small groups. Some kids actually do better when there's other kids with them. And then for parents who are not ready to send their kids back still around other kids, we do Zoom sessions for that. So we do that currently at our school, but we have teachers that are really great at that, somehow kind of making it hands-on through Zoom. So we offer that too.
Tell me your favorite thing that we got that happened this year at school.
A tree house. That was
Bam.
my dream for a long
Look at this.
time.
Pull up that slide, Mike.
Yeah. So this tree is really perfect, honestly, to make that dream happen. But part of the way that we keep the kids safe, really any year, but this year is the perfect year for it because keeping the kids outside and active is one way that we think helps them to stay healthy. And so we have a few more things we're going to add to it, but all the students, so from the little ones, like his youngest one, all the way up to 5th grade, there's things for all of them to enjoy on it. And the teachers, we love it.
Mega playground expansion here at Divine/Kingdom Kids. Loving it. Okay, tell us what's going on for the future.
Okay,
Pull up this next slide, Mike.
so, well, the first thing I think you wanted me to say that is kind of in here, but that's going so well, and we believe so much in the kids being active is not only keeps them healthy, but it helps us to teach a lot better when they are in the classroom. So this room in here that you guys have probably seen where kids get dropped off, this big room, we are turning that into kind of a multi-purpose room where the kids can be active inside too. And so we've had a beautiful winterish type weather this year, but that's not typical, and it's going to get really hot and rainy. And so we wanted to have a different space too, to kind of share where kids can be active. And so that's happening fairly soon in there. And then,
Well, hold on. So in that big kids room, 2 things that we wanted to do. One, we wanted to build active space in there, so we're putting in like an indoor playground at the kind of like the 2nd level. That particular room has high ceilings, and we've taken out part of the ceiling to do that. And the second thing we wanted is we want parents that are dropping off kids for church programming. We want them to walk in those doors and be like, "This place is awesome." Right? This place is awesome. Right? So those are the 2 things we wanted to accomplish, and that'll be done over the spring break holiday, which is coming up in 2 weeks. exciting stuff.
Yes. And so kind of to go with that, since the school's full, the church, often has a lot of kids too, and we want to utilize the space well. So we're going to be adding, you've seen there's portables out there, and we've kind of fixed them up over time. And so we have 2 more portables that are going to come in. These 2 are already here. Is that right?
So if you think this is the church building, portable 1, 2, 3, 4,
Right.
and then we're going to add 2 portable units for specific like classroom environments for the school and for the church.
Mm-hmm. And so, and that way that room, we're kind of taking up some space, but we can use it well still. And so that takes up part of the backyard that we love, but we're going to expand that as well. So we'll move the fence up here, move it out here, and it will still give plenty of space for the backyard to be open for them too.
So expanding the backyard, adding the portables, adding the indoor playground facility, that's all happening between the school and the church. All of those are things that the school and the church benefit from, especially for children's ministry and for all our educational space. Really good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's hit the pause button. Questions? Ask Sarah anything you want to ask her. She loves this. Yeah.
For your summer program, how's that different for people that can come pretty much all your students that are already coming?
Well, that's part of why we're moving through such a rapid pace to have this other space, because we want it to be, especially for the summer, a safe place for kids who go to public school and they need somewhere to go for the summer. And we have a lot of students that they came here in preschool, but then their teachers are parents, so they're not with us during the year, but they come back for that. And then just other students that need it, and the church, obviously. So this gives us extra classrooms and extra space, because we do have preschool, and this year we took 1-year-olds. That's new for us, too. So we want to make sure they're all separate in a way that's safe for them. So yes, everybody, there's still space for anybody who needs it. Or we're making space. Making space, that's what I'm saying.
Anybody else questions about the school? Sarah, thank you so much. You just nailed it. All right. Thank you. Sarah does an amazing job here of keeping the school top notch. We are pretty much full, and if you haven't checked out either the school Instagram pages or Facebook pages and see the educational environments that are taking place here at the school, pretty amazing stuff going on here at the school. I mean, nailing life, if you know what I mean. Okay, let me just refer to this graphic one more time here so that you guys get this. We're going to actually expand the backyard area to make sure that we can keep a good amount of playground field space for all the stuff that's going on with the church and the school as we cover up some of that space with the additional portables. But there is one little hiccup that we're going to need tons of help with to make this happen at the church. It's this right here. So this little sucker, which if you've been here at the Vine for a while, are probably fond of. This is where we do all our outside gatherings, and we use as our stage for things like Christmas and Easter, and we'll use it here at Easter. It's been very good to us. Very, very good to us. And the truth is, it's still in pretty good shape because we kind of make sure that we stain it and keep it up and all that kind of stuff. We've actually moved this once, and we need to do it one more time. All right? We promise it's the last. We promise it's the last time. If I remember correctly, I feel like there was about 25 of us that moved it last time. Is that right? You were out on that?
You can land a helicopter on it. I know that.
So the plan is that we're going to, after Easter, take part of this apart and then move it within the new backyard space, creating space for these additional portables. It'll take us like 25 guys, maybe 30 to get this done. And even then, there'll be some complaining. So we want to make you aware that that's coming down the pipe. We'll text you or call you when that's about to happen. All right? Okay, real quick, let me fast forward. Who hates this? Oh, man. These have been a thorn in my side, like Paul says. I have been praying for God to remove this thorn for a long time. We just want to make you aware that we have engaged a local friend and contractor to come up with a really long-term solution for this. that won't look like that. That will look nice. And so we want you to know that's coming also. And we'll spend just a little bit of money making this a little bit more eye appealing. Okay? I want to let you know that at the beginning of the year, we felt like even though we were going into COVID season, that because of the reduced use of the facility, in fact, we were not meeting for a while, that it would be a good time to do some upgrades, which we did. We did the parking lot. I don't know if you've noticed that. We resurfaced the parking lot. We painted all the facility. We took down some of the architectural design on the front, and we're adding a new front architectural design. So we're putting in a new pergola front entranceway. If you were like wondering, why did they take the steeple down? It just took us a while to get our permit done with the city. We're not blaming anybody. Doug, if you're watching, we love you. It just took us a while to get through that process. So we've got a new pergola entranceway that's going to go in on the entranceway of the facility. We're going to grow vine on that pergola, hence the vine. Okay, I think you see it. And then also right along here where there used to be these arches, we're putting in these like wood pallet facade walls, and then we're going to grow vine up those on the front of the facility. So I think it's going to look really nice when we get it all done. That's going in the next few weeks, so you'll see that undertaking underway as we get past spring break and on into the Easter season, okay? Just wanted to make you aware. And then one last little tidbit that's coming up. Who hates this room? Anybody been in that room? We don't have a lot of storage space here at the Vine. And by we don't have a lot, I mean we pretty much have none. And Debbie is one of our deacons who's kind of in charge of just the facility and making sure the facility is clean and presentable. We've been meeting together to talk about how we could make that room function better for long-term storage and all of our supplies and stuff. And so this room will get cleaned up and turned into a new functional multi-use space when it comes to kitchen and storage during the week of March 13th. And so if you're interested in helping out, whether it's building the shelving that's coming in that we've already ordered or installing that's going to happen on that weekend, that March 13th weekend. And if that sign-up sheet's in the back, if you just want to be on that text thread and let me know when that's going to happen, I'll come down and help. We would love for you to take part in that, okay? Let me hit the pause button again for just a moment. I know that was a lot between like school, backyard, facility stuff. Any questions before we roll just straight on through? Man, I just feel so good. I feel like you should ask questions, but okay. Here we go. Also coming up, we've got Easter in the backyard this year. This takes a lot of manpower to pull off Easter in the backyard. It'll be, I don't know, with COVID, who knows how it'll be attended, but usually it's one of the most attended services of the year. It takes a lot of manpower when it comes to children's ministry volunteers and greeters and setup, and we usually do some light refreshments on that day. But the biggest component is we put up this shade system out in the backyard so that everybody sitting out there is not in the sweltering heat while we try to pull off this service. And that shade system usually takes us, depending on who's in charge, it usually takes anywhere from about 3 to 6 hours to put up. I've done it in 3.5, no matter what Donnie says. I've done it in 3.5. So what we're going to try to do is dedicate the Saturday before Easter and put that up. We're going to be meeting here, and we'll send out that message too and let you know we're definitely going to need some manpower to make that happen on that Saturday. Are you with me? Okay, any questions about Easter? Why you gotta be negative? I mean, seriously. The backup plan is always to bring it inside. To my knowledge, we have never had an Easter be moved inside. But we have had I'd say about 50% of the Christmas Eves have gotten moved inside. Christmas Eve is always a toss-up, but Easter has never been. For whatever reason, it usually rains in the afternoons in Florida. It does not really a morning rain except for this morning. So, jinx. Yeah, good question. Yeah, so we usually just move it inside and go back to normally scheduled program, and we turn people away at the door. And that's a whole deal. Yes. Yes, we will have baptisms this Easter, and that starts being announced, and there are already some people that have requested to be baptized. So if you're listening online and you're interested in taking that step of faith and following through in baptism, you can do that on Easter. We'll have that set up for you. It's a great question. Thank you for that. That's a very positive question. All right. Anything else when it comes to Easter? I know. Either way, they're going to get wet in those scenarios. Okay. So let me update you a little bit with what's going on about the building program. So over 4 years ago now, the church got together and said, hey, we've got, if you didn't know, if you're new to the church or watching this online and you didn't know this, when you come south on John Young Parkway and do the turnaround back to the church, all of that property is owned by the Vine. And so we own the adjacent property to us. We have a total of about 11 acres, maybe 12, something like that. And so about 4 years ago, we got together and we said, okay, we're getting to the point where, this is all pre-COVID, of course, where it's time to expand the facility and we need to think about the future. And so we put together a plan in order to see that happen. Part of that was in-house fundraising, which we did. Part of that was selling property, which we did part of that. And then we put together a building committee, designed, went through the engineering, the architectural design, spent the money to get all of those things in place. We truly have a complete design, a completed architectural design, a completed engineering design for this property. For all intensive purposes, we are ready to pull the trigger when we feel like it's the right time. There was some pretty robust discussions about a year and a half ago that was the right time and we were ready to kind of take a leap of faith and do it with more debt than we probably were comfortable taking on. Now, of course, we consider this the blessing of God, that we didn't do that and that we did the most conservative thing, which is to say, hey, let's just wait and make sure that the timing's right and make sure that the debt load is right and make sure that we're not going over and above what we can potentially do. Because, you know, I was sitting with the church treasurer a week ago and he looked at me and he said, Mike, if we had built that building then and we were sitting in that building with that giant mortgage with the thing 15% full, this would have been a disaster, right? And I'm thinking, yeah, you're right. He goes, this is a blessing. Like I know there's got to be some frustration, but we're just going to have to, you know, make sure we're moving in God's timing and waiting on the right timing. And so that's the way the eldership has been looking at it. Let me give you their 3-step plan just so that you know what we decided. We wanted to raise $300,000 in-house, which we did do. We wanted to sell the old church property for those that are new to the Vine. The church owned some property in addition to this property, which we sold to the county, which is where the new county tax appraiser's office is down by Addison's Gun Shop. So we sold that property to the county. That we took the proceeds from that sale and kept those in the building fund and reduced and brought the church to debt-free. So the church is debt-free. We've set aside all that money in the building fund, including the money that we've raised in-house. For those that are have been involved in this and took time to raise part of this money and have ever thought to yourself, wonder what happened with the building fund, right? All that money's still untouched. In fact, as a 501c3 organization, we're not allowed as an organization to spend that money on anything except for what you as a congregation collectively have set that aside for. So it just sits there and it waits until it's time to expand the facility. And we know that time is coming. It's just that we're in a very unusual time with COVID, and it's an unusual time for church growth. It's an unusual time for church expansion, and so it is what it is. The other piece that did not get accomplished in our building plan that we wanted to do was we put together a 20-year plan for the development of this property that involved two buildings, not just one, two more buildings. Once we developed that plan with our architect and our engineers, we realized that really we had about 4 acres that we didn't really need. Even with all the parking lots and the buildings that we were going to build, that we didn't want to build a behemoth here with the idea of everybody come to one location. Our long-term plan was that once we build this next sanctuary, it would be our last sanctuary, and then we would invest in planting other churches outside of this campus. That was always the vision for the Vine. So we had acreage that we needed to sell out of that land that was there in order to help raise the capital that we needed for this project. Because the project, I mean, just so that you know and have a understanding of what we're talking about a project that's over $3 million. So it's a big project, right? And we wanted to have the right debt load. The eldership at the time that we were talking about this did not want to carry more than $1 million in debt. Now, that may change over time, depending on how we look at this project, but that's what they had set as a goal when we started this, which meant that we wanted to sell 4 acres of property out of the property that we do have and are developing. Those 4 acres were put under contract twice for over $1 million, but those deals fell through. They just didn't happen. It was a weird time. It's a weird piece of property and just didn't work out. Now, we think that that will sell at some point. As you know, just south of us at Dunkin' Donuts, just below Dunkin' Donuts there, one of the older Osceola County ranching families who used to own that piece of property just sold that to a developer. And that has 150 single-family homes going in, 350 townhomes, and 100,000 square feet of retail space that's going in right there below Dunkin' Donuts, which just means that as you see things continuing to develop, I know you're super excited about that traffic that'll happen, but as you see things continue to develop, property just continues to be more and more in need in our area, and so it is what it is. We know that at the right time, that property will sell, and that's the other capital piece that we needed to reach our debt threshold levels that the eldership felt comfortable with. We just wanted to get into a place where it was like, hey, let me say it this way. It was so funny because she said before the service, she said, I've never been to a church where they never asked for money. Welcome to the Vine. So let me say it this way. For a very long time, part of the DNA of the Vine Church has been to take a very, I don't know, I would call it maybe a soft approach when it comes to church finances. And the reason behind it was this, that we felt like it was our calling and that we did a good job as a church staff, a church eldership, and pastor, helping to connect people to the gospel that had not either had a church experience or had a bad church experience or had very little church experience, right? We felt like we did a good job of presenting the gospel again. What we found out was that one of the big obstacles to that was that people had a very negative kind of worldview when it came to church and church finances. So we don't talk about it a whole lot, maybe to our detriment sometimes. But the truth is that the core of the Vine and the people that are committed here have been very committed and very committed financially, and we've never really wanted, God has blessed us. He's been it truly blessed us here for the size of this congregation, the scope of this congregation. He's truly blessed us in our efforts and in our mission. But it does create a scenario where what we didn't want to do as a leadership was change the DNA. We didn't want to build a building and then go, hey, Mike, you're going to have to talk about money every week. Does that make sense? We felt like it'd be, some churches that wouldn't be a big change, right? And they'd be culturally more like ready for that. We just didn't feel like the Vine was ready to have that discussion every week. Like literally every week, hey, we're passing the plates again. Sorry. not enough. Got to pay the mortgage this week. We just felt like that was a huge leap for the Vine. And so we needed to be super conservative how we structured this debt. And we wanted to make sure that we did it in a way that protected the mission of what we were trying to accomplish, which was reach people that in many times were for their first experience in a church experience. That's the reason that we did it. That's the reason we held off. All the eldership has high-fived each other now and thought that was the right decision after COVID happened. We'll be honest. We've patted each other on the back and said, see, we knew what we were doing. So at the time, probably when it was happening, we were like, we don't know what we're doing. But now we felt like it was the right decision. All right, let me hit the pause button real quick. Questions on that, and I know it's a lot. Okay, this is your chance to redeem yourself.
The question is that money that's sitting in the bank, is that an interest-bearing account?
Well, good question. Is it an interest-bearing account, the money that's in the bank? The simple answer to that is yes, but if you know anything about bank interest right now, that means pretty much nothing. So even in an interest-bearing account, it's very, very little interest. Yeah, it's very, very little. Yeah. The church treasurer and the church elders have been extremely conservative. And so if I went in and said, I'd like to look at a robust plan for interest bearing, but they'd be like, and no, thank you. So that's just been our way we've handled it.
And then have you taken into consideration the cost of construction and materials are going to go up? How long are we waiting?
Yes. The answer to that is yes. We went into the project, the design of the project, hoping to be right around 2.8, came out at first run at almost 5 million, and then backed it in with the engineered down to about 3.2. So even while we were designing, things were going up. The funny thing about construction materials, though, is that construction directly reflects the larger economy as a whole. And so there's a great argument to be made that we're on an upswing now, but that may not always be the case. So it's hard to kind of like make the decisions based upon like, will the economy keep going up and will the cost of 2x4s keep going up? You know. I hope that's right. I hope that's right. I hope that's right.
Projects we're doing right now are costing 20 to 30% because of COVID.
Number one, they can't get it. Can't get the supplies. You know what I'm saying? So it's hard to get the supplies right now. So, yes.
In that, I was looking at that lovely picture of the new structure.
Yeah, can you go back to that, Mike?
Just wondering, is the current building of the Vine in there somewhere, or does it get totally torn down and rebuilt?
No, this gets rehabbed in the project for student ministry in the school. So, but yeah, this is a completely freestanding structure next to this structure.
Cool.
Other questions? Just about building stuff? I know we have, let me say as a representative of the elder body, we haven't talked about this a whole lot, mostly because there's not a lot more to say yet. It's kind of like we're in a holding pattern. We know we're in a holding pattern. We wish we could bring you good news. But the truth is that until the other piece of our plan, which is the sale of that property and that capital influx, there's not really a discussion to be had. We're not ready to say, let's jump into a bunch of debt as a congregation. Does that make sense? Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just wondering, it's not about this building, but what we're talking about fixing the front and the pergola and all that.
Mhm.
Are you need the church members to help you out with that? Or?
Yes. A couple things, and there are some sign-up sheets in the back for that. I think one of them is labeled facility care. There's a couple of different days coming up that if you sign up on that sheet, what that means is I'm going to text that particular group list and say, hey, on this day coming up, we're doing this. On this day coming up, we're doing that. And yes, there is some participation that we need for those involvement. Yeah. Yes. So about money. Come on, girl.
This building that we thought we were going to have in the future, how do we plan
Good question. How long will we be in debt? How will we pay off the debt? Couple responses. One, if keeping in mind that the eldership has kind of set its benchmark at $1 million of institutional debt for the church, right? To give you kind of like a benchmark to think this about, the church held $1 million in debt for 10 years, right? That's not for a congregation, that's not a large number, right? That's something that we did comfortably for a long time on property that we owned. So if we had to build a building, carry a debt load for a time, we want to feel comfortable with that debt load. We want to feel like that debt load fits the mission of the church, meaning that what we don't want to do is take on debt where we're going, hey, we got to reduce staff, or we got to reduce programming, or we got to reduce missions, right? We want to carry the right debt threshold. That's why the eldership has been so cautious on how they want to manage this. As for paying it off, I think it would be we would look at a traditional model, which is that once the building is built and the congregation enters that facility and we get what's typically like a new building bump when it comes to attendance. And at usually about the 48-month mark, the church congregation usually looks at going back into some sort of capital fundraising campaign to pay down that debt, pay it off. Usually that can take anywhere from 3 to 5 years if the congregation wants to really pursue it hard. Yeah.
Other projects that you want to do, specifically outside of design this different saying that you want within 20 years, so building other vine.
Yes. So,
Models of vine, is that going to include more that keep taking on by us?
no, two things. One, the proposed building that we have is a predominantly sanctuary space, and then this gets transformed into ministry-based space, student ministry and children's ministry and stuff. But that's not the last building project we want to do on this property. We also have proposed another 20,000 square feet down the road. This is definitely down the road, of multi-use space, which is like gymnasium space, and that would be school, church, dual purpose. So that's the first thing. Not that we would do that before any other satellite or missionary supports of churches that are being launched, but I just want you to know that, have that in the back of your mind. And then the second thing is that, yes, we would like to continue to plant churches out of the vine, but those plants usually we don't use debt resources to plant those. We use income resources to plant those. Yeah. Good question. Anything else? Nailing it. Okay. All right, let's talk about eldership real quick as we kind of get towards the end of our gathering. So real quick, if you're new to the Vine functions under a plurality of leadership model, which just means at the end of the day, for the simple, I'm not in charge. It may look like I'm in charge. It may even feel like I'm in charge sometimes, but there's a plural group of people at this church who've been set aside. We call them elders. Some churches call them overseers. Some churches even call them bishops, that help govern the body of believers here. Everything from finances to programming, everything that happens under the umbrella of the Vine is governed by a plural group of leaders. And that's helped in a couple ways. One, it spreads the burden out. It takes responsibility, and an overwhelming responsibility, away from me. It creates a link arm mentality where, we recognize here, one of the things we talk about constantly here at the Vine is that we're broken, and empowering one person with everything is a recipe for disaster. right? You're basically saying, hey, we're going to give this broken guy complete responsibility here. It's a setup for disaster. Let's watch him fail. So what we try to do is, with accountability and a willingness to work hand in hand together, we create a plural group, and that group oversees the things that are going on here at the church. We believe that that model is the model that is presented in the New Testament. That's why you see a number of places, like in Acts chapter 14, where when they start moving and establishing churches all across the Mediterranean world, they say things like this: they appointed elders for them in every church, with prayer and fasting and commitment to them in the Lord in whom they had believed. They appoint elders at every church and in every city. That's how Paul and the apostles set it up. And so when Paul's writing to the young pastor Timothy in Ephesus, he says, the saying is trustworthy. If anyone aspires to the office of overseer, same word as elder, he desires a noble task. And he goes on to describe the type of character and the type of person that might volunteer to be a part of that leadership of a local congregation. I say all that to you to say, here at the Vine, one of the things that we're doing is tonight we're going to install 2 new elders. So we're putting 2 new people on the elder board. Donnie is an elder. Just wave that big bald guy over there. He's an elder. And Bill's the chairman of the elders, right? Which makes him super important. And so those all the elders. We had to do this because all the elders are retired now, right? So it's like too many retired guys on the elder board. So we added some guys that were still working. And so now we're adding 2 new guys to the elder board. Carlos, who's a back row Baptist tonight. There you go. There you go. And Doug Etheridge, and many of you guys know Doug and Sandy, who couldn't be here tonight because Doug's has a relative that's connected to the family that came down with COVID, and he is sequestering himself. Doug, we love you. We miss you, man. And Doug, we're going to add Doug to the elder board tonight, too. And so these are guys that are joining the elder board. And all this means is that at the end of the day, these guys, when the elders and the elders of this church and the pastor come together, I have no more power or authority or responsibility than they do. If we're in a meeting and we're talking about an issue and we have to vote on it, like a committee would vote on it, I tried to get my vote to be weighted. They turned it down. They wouldn't let me. And so I have just as much weight to my vote as they do. At any point in time at this church, if they feel like I'm off track, they have the right and the mandate to hold me accountable, and which includes the hiring and firing of all staff, including me. Which means at the end of the day, this isn't mine. This church isn't mine. At some point, I won't be here. You won't be here. What we're doing here is advancing the gospel and the reputation of Jesus Christ in this community and in this our world. And it's not about us. And the group helps us to be reminded of this. It helps us to remember this and to hold each other accountable in this goal. And so that's why we have that. And so tonight, we'd like to take a moment of prayer with you guys as we close out our time and install these new guys into the eldership. But before we do, I know that was a lot about eldership. If you have a question, either for the elders or for me or about eldership, you can ask. Anybody got any questions? Yes. The elders can be elected of one of 2 ways, actually one of 3 ways. A member of the congregation can ask to be considered for eldership at any point in time. Elders appoint elders. That's the model we use from the scriptures, that elders appoint elders, which means if a congregant says, hey, I really think that God's prepared me for this and I feel like this would be a good fit for me, I'd like the eldership to review me and consider me as an elder. Then they would do that. So they can ask to be reviewed at any time. An elder can ask a church member to consider that person himself. He could say, hey, I think this would be a good fit for you. Would you like to consider this? Or another church member can put forth a name. of somebody they think should be considered as an elder. One of those three ways is in our bylaws is how that works. Once a person enters into candidacy, like for Carlos and Doug, they sit with the elder body as a non-voting member for a year. For a year. They have to come onto the elder committee and sit in all the meetings and participate. They can make comment and make opinions and be passionate, but they're not allowed to vote. And then once the year is up, the eldership takes a vote if this is a good fit, because we review it on three levels. We review it on competency, we review it on character, and we review it on and chemistry, which means do they have the character, which is the outline in the New Testament, Titus and Timothy, about the character fit? Do they have the competency? Is this a good fit? Is this in their wheelhouse of management? And is it the right fit for us? Meaning that this eldership's already in place. Is it a good relational fit, right? They review it on those three categories, then they vote, and once they vote, then the church installs. And that's what we're doing tonight. Yes? Right now we have 3, and with the 2 that we'll add tonight, we'll have 5. We'll have 5. And I think we capped it at, I want to say the bylaws say we capped it at 7. I think 7. At some point you're like, you can't have 15 people sitting in a meeting trying to talk. It's just ridiculous. Yes?
Are you actively looking for 2 more to bring it up to 7?
Actively looking. No. We would not be looking, but there's never been like,
It's not like it's supposed to be 7.
yes, no, it's like 7's the max.
Okay.
If it stayed 5 for 2 years, we'd be fine. You know, we'd be like, okay, whatever. You know what I mean? We're not like, hey, we got to get to 7. You know, as quickly as possible. Any other questions about all that, the leadership and eldership stuff? At the end of the day, look, it's a tough and it's a thankless job to some extent. A lot of times this group is having to make tough decisions and deal sometimes with tough relational things within the congregation. So for instance, like, just so that you know, not that any of you would, right? But if there was a situation of disagreement between church members, which there has been, gossip, slander, those kind of things, that's really the elder's job, is to help manage some of those situations and manage the health of the congregation. And so from time to time, they get to do some of the most uncomfortable things in the congregation and help make sure that we're doing God's work and God's best along the way. And most of their work goes unseen, meaning that most of the work that they do is either with me to keep me on track and hold me accountable, or with other congregants to kind of softly and gently come alongside and say, hey, can we have a talk? And then make tough decisions about the health and the future of the church, you know? So that's their role. Questions? Yeah. It's a great question. Thank you for that. The answer to that is yes. The answer to that is yes. Okay, so let me walk through this with you real quick. We know that this can be a touchy subject, but the way that we've chosen to function as a congregation, and we know not every congregation functions this way, is that we believe that the leadership of the church is really a macro expression of the micro expression of the leadership of a family. Does that make sense? And so it doesn't mean that anybody's more valuable. It just means that there are roles that we applaud and we give thanks for and we work within in the congregational setting. Now we have, for instance, we have elders or overseers and deacons here. And we made the move this year to add women to the deacon board because we believe that that fits the biblical model that we see in the scripture. But you would be very hard pressed in the scripture to make an argument that the overseers or the elders is not a reflection of what we see in the family. And so in that aspect, we've chosen to have guys. One of the requirements for eldership is that there are guys, and the guys that are leading a family.
Does that mean that they can't bring things?
No, it doesn't mean that at all. In fact, I would say that Donnie's been letting Donna run that show for a long time. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Let's pray. No, I'm kidding. I hope she's watching this. Oh, it's so good. Please comment, Donna. Please comment on this. So to answer that question, no. My wife, I'll speak for me. My wife is a continuing nudge in the right direction at this church. I get a never-ending, hey, you know what you should do? You know what you should do? You know what you really need to think about? I get a lot of that, and I think that's good. The other thing that I would say that I think we made the right decision about a year ago or 2 years ago was that you can't make a biblical argument. It would be tough to make a biblical argument for an eldership that didn't have the male requirement, right, from the Bible. Now, you can make an argument that, hey, we're going to leave the biblical example and go to some modern example. I'm fine with that. I mean, if that's what a church wants to do, that's just not what we chose to do. But I would also say equally that it would be very hard not to see that one of the things that is outlined in Scripture is that there are servants and deacons and major players when it comes to the health of the body of the congregation that are women. And I think we took a really grand step making that right this last year and getting some people into place and deputizing them who were women, right? And they play a key role in what's going on at this church. Whether it's staff that are women, or whether it's deacons that are women, or whether it's women in specific roles of ministry at this church. One of the things that I see going on at the Vine is that I think a healthy balance between what how the congregation looks and a family should look. And I see women playing a key role in that. So hope that answers your question. I tried to be as politically correct as possible there. It's as good as I can do. You like that? Tiptoeing through this. Ask me about the Me Too movement. I'll nail that one too. Here we go. What do you need? What do you want? Okay. I'm glad you're enjoying this. You're loving this so much. Look at Mike. He's uncomfortable. All right. I think that's good. Good question. Any other questions on that? I don't want to rush through that because I know that's a lot. I'm happy to banter. If you don't agree, you can say I don't agree. Okay, so we wanted to end our time tonight in prayer for our new elders that are being installed. I want to have the elders pray and have you as a congregation pray. Normally we would lay hands on them, but we figured we'd skip the super spreader event and just, we'll do a reach out. We'll do a reach out, so we'll have Carlos up. But before we do that, last thing, is there any other questions that you had that we may not talked about tonight about the church or things going on at the church that you wanted to ask while we have this time? Let me just check over here and see. Okay. See you, Tony. Love you, man. Yes, the plan does expand the school. Hope we answered that question. And yes. Okay, all those questions got answered, sorry. Any other questions? Yes. I knew you were going to ask that. I heard rumors. So great. Thank you for reminding me. Every year at the Vine, we we revoke your membership, and then we ask you to re-up. Mostly because we just kind of feel like church membership has kind of gotten into this funky thing where you just kind of become a member. We keep you on a roll till you die, and even then we might keep you on if we want to bump up our numbers. And so it's just kind of become meaningless, and we wanted to add meaning to it and add a confirmation, kind of yearly confirmation to what was going on at the Vine. But because of COVID, we were like, number one, we weren't ready to have a meeting at the beginning of the year with everybody. And number two, it was like, what are we going to sign you up to do exactly? Watch the online live stream? We weren't sure. So the eldership decided that we would just do a continuing resolution of all the members. So everybody that was a member last year, we just grafted you in for one more year. We'll talk about this at the beginning of next year. Hopefully we'd be at a different place. Les, we know that you were concerned that maybe you had missed that, but we checked the roll and you actually are a member, so somehow you got through when you went to the membership class. So it was good. We know you went to membership class, but the only requirement for becoming a member here at the Vine is that you at least attend the membership class one time, and we just haven't scheduled that because we were like, okay, do we do that online? How do we do that? It's hard to do that. We usually like to have face-to-face dialogue when it comes to the membership stuff. So we'll plan a new members class before this year's out, a new members class. If you want to become a member, you can. And then we'll re-up new members in January of next year, as we normally would do. But this year, we just told everybody, you're in. You're in luck. We're not kicking you out this year. We keep you for one more year. So, yes. Yes. No. Are you not in the church text group? Okay. That's hilarious. That's hilarious. Because you're here like 90% more than he is. Okay. I'll make sure that happens. I'll make sure that happens, and I'll make sure that happens over there too. In fact, that's a great, if for some reason you're not getting the church text, that's basically the main way we communicate what's going on here at the Vine. And so please, please, please sign up on one of those sign-up sheets back there and just write, add me to church text. You left me out, okay? All right. Any other questions? Okay. Yes?
Baptisms are on the app.
Yes, you can sign up for baptisms on the app. And all of these things that we talked about, you can sign up for the app. And if you want to sign up hard copy, it's on the back table tonight. We ask you please to consider that before you leave, right? Sign up in one of these areas. We definitely need to gear up as we start back up as a congregation out of this COVID season. Anything else? Yes?
I know that you don't, I mean, I come from a Southern Baptist background where every Sunday you had
Altar call.
an altar call.
Yeah.
And you know, you kind of, maybe when we had communion up front, that's kind of an opportunity to pray, but, and, you know, since I've been coming here, you haven't preached a come to Jesus.
Yeah.
sermon.
Yeah. No, fair enough.
What's the Vine message?
Okay. Up until COVID, we would have what we would call an altar call. May it not be that traditional. Normally during the communion time, we would have a deacon on both sides of the congregation or a volunteer that works under one of the deacons on both sides of the congregation. Usually it'd be a male and a female up here. Danielle's done that a bunch. Carla's done that a bunch. Donnie's done that a bunch. Bill's done that a bunch. And that would and we would provide time for people. And usually I would say, hey, while you're coming up to receive communion, if you're here and you need to make a decision for Christ, you want to get some counseling, you got something on your heart, you need somebody to pray for you, there would be that opportunity. That we just kind of shut it down because of the close contact of that, the nature of that contact with COVID. So we've kind of made that more reflective time, like, hey, take this time to think about this. And I think that with that and the addition of the discussion about wisdom, which has been more of like the practicality of Christian living, that we haven't focused on a real salvific message over the last couple of weeks. And so I see that changing as we come out of this COVID season and get back into a more traditional routine here at the church. So I hope that answers your question. But yeah, we haven't like canned that because we don't believe in it. by any chance. We're still there. Want to see people come to Jesus, but it's just weird. It's like they come up and cry on you or sneeze on you. It's like, whoa, okay, now we've both got it. Okay. Those are usually emotional times. Okay. Other questions?
Are we looking to do any more expanded mission, local type of missionary work?
Local work. Usually, the last couple of years here at the Vine, we focused on a couple of things. One, we focus on the home project right across the street, which is helping others make the effort. That's single moms that are working towards self-sufficiency. We'll do that a couple times a year. Leslie's been helping out, organizing our food pantry, which we've been working with Council on Aging. We have in the past worked with Clarita's House around the holidays to do Thanksgiving and Christmas. And we'll probably continue to do all three of those. Every year, Mike does a backpack drive for the homeless. The school participates in that. So there are some things that we are doing when it comes to those. And you'll hear about them when those seasons come up and when those times come up. We just did a hoodie drive for homeless during the cold season. And you'll hear me saying that on Sunday morning and stuff. But it's been a little disjointed. And so I think that's more to the point of your question, which is, hey, what's going on? Like, how can we? And in part, to answer your question, that's why we're saying that we feel like it's time at this church to set aside a committee of people that would be focused on the ins and outs of ongoing mission support outside of Honduras. And so, to answer your question, yes, there are things going on. Yes, there'll be more things going on, and we'd like the mission committee to take the steering wheel on that and run with it. Yeah. Okay. Anything else? All right, Carlos, get up here, man. Come on. Doug, you just be there online in your living room. So let's just have a moment of prayer for this guy and his service over these next, couple of years, just for wisdom and discernment, and that he wouldn't fire me. All those, okay. Let's have that prayer together, and just blessings upon him and his family as we start this journey together. If you'll just stretch out an arm from where you're at, and I'll kind of give us a quiet moment, and then I'll lead us if that's okay. Father, we set aside Carlos to you here in this congregation and ask for discernment and wisdom. Father, we know that everyone with a hand out, and Carlos included, is broken and in need of your grace. He stands here not because he is perfect, not because he's better, but Father, because he's willing to serve this congregation in this way. So we ask your hedge of protection around him. We ask your blessings upon him and his wife and his kids and his family. We ask for his continued growth and discernment, his reliance upon you, that your spirit would speak loudly in his ear as he helps to lead and shepherd us as we move forward as a congregation. Father, we know that committing to you in this way makes people a target for all that's evil and broken and a distraction from your will and your way. And so we ask that you would protect him in these moments, that you would fill him with confidence and a sense of your presence in a way that would bolster his own strength. We ask all of this in the name of Jesus Christ. And Father, we lift up to you Doug and his family and ask for your blessing as well there, that everything we've requested with Carlos be true with him as well. For Sandy, for the girls, for all that he's responsible for, we ask for reputation and character and testimony, and that you would bless him in his pursuit and spiritual growth of you, and that it would be evident to all of us as we move forward together. We ask this all in your precious name. Amen. All right, guys. I am happy. Yeah. I'm happy to hang out and answer any more questions if you just weren't brave enough to ask one out loud. But we hope that you enjoyed our little gathering tonight. We've tried to make our business meetings as light and interactive as possible. Thank you so much for being here and participating with us in this. And feel free to hang out as long as you like. All right? Love you, mean it. Bye, guys.